Today we're going to have a look at tomatoes. It's the middle of the tomato season here on our farm in Devon. I've come down to the polytunnels and I'm going to show you a very quick salad recipe that shows you how to get the best out of them when they're right in season. But first, Ed from the polytunnels is going to talk quickly about how we grow them here on the farm.
We grow loads of tomatoes down in our polytunnels. We've got, I think, 12,500 plants down here this year, and we're hoping to pick about 54 tonnes of largely cherry tomatoes. We're really proud of the tomatoes that we grow here. We, first of all, above anything else, we pick them for flavour. So if it doesn't taste any good, then it doesn't really matter how much it's yielding, which is also important. But our starting point is always flavour. And this variety we've got here, which is called Sakura, we're very proud of. We've been growing it for years and years now. And we just can't find anything to match it in terms of vigour and taste. We grow our tomatoes in soil, so they're planted directly into the ground, and we water them with tape, so it's a more efficient way of watering than overhead. They grow pretty quickly, and they're quite labour intensive to begin with. So we spend a lot of time going round and we twine the tomatoes as they grow up the vines, and we twine them round in the strings to give them a bit more support. And we take out any side shoots, and that concentrates the growth upwards, and it increases ventilation, because you really don't want any problems with mildew in the tunnels or things like that. And after they've been growing for about 9-10 weeks, we're ready to pick them. The advantage of us having such a short supply chain is that we're really able to wait until they're at their peak ripeness, so we can wait until they're really nice and red and then get them picked, because we know that, you know, within 48 hours they're going to be at a customer's door, which is really great.
So as Ed says, these tomatoes are ripe and they're perfectly in season. We're going to do a simple Italian bread salad called a Panzanella. We're going to take some tomatoes. We've picked some extra cherry tomatoes, some orange and yellow cherries as well. We're going to put them with some mini cucumbers and some fresh basil that are growing alongside in the tunnels here. We're going to do a very simple salad, and it's all about how we dress and we treat those tomatoes to get the best out of them. First thing to say is you want to make sure your tomatoes are room temperature. Ideally store them at room temperature, keep them out of the fridge, but if they have been in the fridge, take them out about half an hour before you make the salad. Now the coldness from the fridge dulls the flavour. You don't get anywhere as near as interesting notes from the tomatoes. So an out of season tomato straight from the fridge would completely ruin this dish. Now you could cut them all into straight slices, but we've got an interesting mix of shapes. So we're going to do a mixture of wedges and slices and cuts that either best show off the shape of the tomato, just to give us an interesting mix so it looks interesting to the eye on the plate. So we're going to take some of these round tomatoes and we're going to cut them in slices. And these long cherry tomatoes, maybe we'll cut them into quarters, lengthways. Anything that gives you an interesting mix of shapes and cuts. Don't be too formal. So now we've chopped our tomatoes, what we're going to do is we're going to slide them into a bowl, and then we're going to season them with a good pinch of sea salt, and then we're going to dress with a very small slosh of red wine vinegar. We're going to mix them with our hands, and we're going to leave them to macerate for about 10 to 15 minutes. What that's doing is the salt is starting to draw liquid out from the tomatoes, and that liquid will drop to the bottom of the bowl, and it'll be this intense tomatoey liquid, and that's going to be the basis for our dressing. Now you can do this salad where you salt the tomatoes and you put them into a colander and you collect the water, and then you emulsify that liquid with olive oil, and it's all very formal. We're just going to throw everything straight into the bowl. The other thing we're going to add into that bowl, we're going to take a red onion and we're going to finely slice a little bit, and we're going to throw that in there as well. Now the point to mixing those two together in the bowl is that the acid from the vinegar and the tomatoes takes away the raw edge from the onion. It starts to slightly pickle or cure that onion, and it's not too powerful and overbearing in the salad. So now take the time to slice the red onion as finely as you can. The finer it is, the quicker it will cure. Okay, so now we're going to add the onion into the bowl. Now give everything a good mix, and then we're going to set it to one side. We're going to leave it for 10 to 15 minutes and get everything else we need for the salad ready. Traditional Panzanella is just tomatoes, salt, olive oil and bread really, but we've got these mini cucumbers growing alongside in the tunnels, and they're going to make a perfectly good addition to the salad. These are really sweet, small mini cucumbers. They're not too watery, but we're going to slice them down the middle, and as much for the look as for the taste, we're going to use a teaspoon and we're going to scrape those seeds out the middle so that when we slice them we get a really nice kind of crescent moon shape to them. So you just drag a teaspoon through the middle. Don't waste the middle. See that as a chef's treat. Think of it as cucumber caviar, if you like. Eat it with a blini. And then we're going to slice them at a shallow angle and throw those in the bowl right at the end. We don't want them to salt and and we don't want them to run any liquid. The next ingredient to go in is the bread. You want really good bread for this. Sliced white is not going to work here. You want bread with a good tooth and a good crumb to it, something that's a bit chewy and is going to hold its shape. Now ideally you want bread that's about 2 or 3 days old. The staler and drier areas, so you put it into these big chunks and it will soak up the dressing really, really well. Now the idea of this was thrift. The idea was that you're going to use up the bread ends and put them in the salad and make use of something that would otherwise go to waste. So we've got a loaf here. Arguably it could be a little bit staler. We're going to take the crust off and then tear it into kind of rough chunks. So now the bread, we're just going to tear it into what might be termed rustic pieces. So you don't want anything formal. There's no point in cutting it into dices or squares. It would just look strange in the bowl. Gently tear it, and then we're going to throw that straight in the bowl at the end. It's the last thing we put in along with the basil. So these tomatoes have been sitting. Now if you look into the bowl, if you roll the bowl to one side, you can see the liquid that's come off the tomatoes. And that is going to be the perfect base for the dressing. You can also see the onions have kind of turned pink and softened in there as well. So that idea of taking that raw edge off the onions, you can kind of see that in the onions in the bowl. We're going to throw the cucumbers into the bowl, and we're going to tear in some fresh basil as well. And tomatoes and basil are perfect bedfellows. They couldn't go together better. We're going to just tear that off the plant. We're not going to chop it. Chopping it bruises it, kind of mushes it up on the board a bit too much. And we add it at this stage rather than at the start, so that it doesn't kind of wilt and blacken inside the bowl. And then we're going to add the bread in right at the end, so that bread has time to soak up a little bit of the dressing, but not so much time that it's just going to fall apart inside the bowl. We're going to serve it immediately. We add some olive oil to make a complete dressing inside the bowl, and then we mix with our hands. Just lay it straight out onto a plate, maybe tear over some final basil tops as well, and a little grind of black pepper if you want. And that's it. That's a perfectly dressed panzanella salad. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, click like, leave any comments below of anything you'd like to see us cook with or talk about, and hit the notification button for updates on our weekly videos.